First of all, Neil, hi. Thank you for being with us today.
Pleasure.
Tonight, actually. And we will just like to know a little something about you and your music, obviously, and what you have for us for tonight. So I don't know. First, can you briefly introduce yourself very quickly?
Well, my name's Neil Landstrumm. I'm from Scotland. I've been producing for about 20 years, so quite a long time, and released on many different labels: Tresor, Peacefrog, Planet Moo, lots of smaller labels. I've got my own label called Scandinavia, and I guess I'm mainly known for live acts and hardware kind of based live acts. So tonight that's what I'm going to be doing, is playing a lot of new music, some old music, and just doing it all live.
So you say you're from Scotland, but you also have lived in other places, right? Correct?
Yeah, and I stayed in New York for 5 years, in Brooklyn, and a little bit in Queens as well.
So, and I don't know, from what we have heard, that you have very different outputs, very different kind of styles of music. And do you think that the time you lived in New York influenced that, or?
Yeah, I think. I was always interested in learning about the kind of period in New York, the kind of electro hip hop period. But New York is a real melting pot of cultures, so it was really interesting listening to, like Filipino music and Bhangra and all sorts of stuff. But I think it's actually probably been more part of the British scene that means that I can move around quite a lot, because in Britain you get all sorts of influences. That Jamaican influence is massive, the sound system culture helped influence rave and dubstep and drum and bass and all these things. So.
And you also mentioned some German labels, so Germany, I think, is also quite an influence for you, like Tresor.
Yeah, the heavy kind of German techno sound, and they were really influential in bringing a lot of Detroit and Chicago artists to Berlin, who then mixed with the UK artists, and I've always seen it as a constantly evolving process.
And you say you are mainly a live act, say performer.
Yeah.
So can you talk us a bit about maybe your setup for the live performance, and maybe also your production process, if it is correlated or not, or?
The two things aren't actually. They used to be when, in the 90s, you would make tracks with the equipment that you would then use live, but nowadays the studio setup's quite different. So for the live set, I use a lot of Electron, which music companies' machines, which are a Swedish company, and they make the Octatrack and the Mono machine, and they're just really, really good quality pieces of kit. Whereas in the studio, I still use a lot of the original analogs, and like the Jupiter 8, Jupiter 6, the 808 drum machine, but then it all gets brought together in a laptop computer. So the two things are similar, but playing live is more of a process to blend together the patterns, and because it's a few different things. It's tracks, patterns, samples, a bit of live analog stuff, so it's kind of just mixing all that together.
And what about the influences in your music? What influences you? What do you like to put in your music? What do you like in general?
What do I like? I think at the moment I'm quite keen on making it fun, because a lot of techno and electronic music's very
Dark,
serious and dark, and I've kind of done that, and I think I like having things that are a bit more playful and fun, and for a crowd to really enjoy. And I think there's only so much of that dark shit you can take.
I agree with that. And you say I've done that, and I've seen it also in other interview that you are like a very quick producer. I mean, you tend to produce stuff and put it out.
Yeah, well, I like to make something and then move on. So it's done, forget about it. Whereas a lot of people, they get caught in a loop of doing the same thing over and over again. And I think creatively it can be a bit stale, a bit dry. So I like to just set myself a target, do it, move on.
Yeah, we were having an interesting discussion the other week with some other guest, Samuel Carriage. I don't know if you know him, and we were talking about this stuff for putting out your music, and he said something very interesting that lately it's very difficult to put out something and have it reach the public, especially if you make a vinyl release, because there's so much delay in the plans and much let's say bureaucracy. let me say so. It's very difficult to have something, put it out, and then present it to the public in a timely manner. So, do you agree? You think it's hard right now, or you can live with that?
Well, it's almost become a bit like the fashion industry, that because it takes it can take up to 9 months to a year really for a record. So it's almost like you're making it for not 2017 or something, So. You do have to sort of think. Well, actually, I've never really cared what anybody else is doing. I just do what I want to do. But I think now you've got to be a bit more creative with keeping your name out there, like I do. I've got in the habit of making these collections of images, which I put out on my social media, which a lot of people seem to be quite enjoying. So I think you can sort of you can create a sort of image for yourself as an artist, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be with the record. Like putting out recordings of live acts is another good one, or there's so many different ways.
And I think that's also what you do with your label. Like Scandinavia is not only a label.
No, it's visual too. It was.
Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean that. I worked as a sort of creative director and designer for some companies in New York, and did a little bit of work in the art world. And when I moved back to Europe, I did a bit more of that. And I find it really difficult just doing music full time. So right now, I'm studying, doing a master's in renewable energy as well. So
it's interesting.
Yeah, I think I like thinking sort of globally, and music. I like music just being a sort of fun part of it.
And you also did some work for video game industry, right? Is it correct?
Yeah, that was a while ago, but it was when Rockstar Games first started. I worked with their art director doing branding and some motion graphics and video for the E3 Games conference to launch Grand Theft Auto 2 and 3. So that was just when they got really big.
Well, you were part of that, yeah. It was nice, yeah. Speaking also of all the social media thing, I think this it was early this year that you released one of your first albums. For free download. Why did you did that? What was the reason behind that?
I just thought it would be a cool thing to do. I find it frustrating that Tresor they'd kind of forgotten about all that period, and I just thought, I might as well just give this away. It's financially it's not worth it. I just thought it was a cool thing to do, and loads of people hit it. So it was a good move. It was a good move, And I wanted that music to be back in circulation, because there's a whole new generation of younger people that might not have found that. So I wanted good copies of the files in circulation, so that I got the best copies that I could and packaged it up.
Yeah, I think this also applies to Luke Vibert, which is playing tonight. Yeah, there's the audience today is very much broader than it was 20 years ago, because there was the people that follow you 20 years ago, and now all the internet guys that can follow you really quickly. So do you think that's a positive thing, a bad thing? The whole, let's say, spread of information.
I think it's. I've always been into the idea of populist art. You want it to. You don't want to keep it all hidden away. You want it to be circulated.
But there's some people who want that.
Yeah, I suppose it's it's mine. But no, I'm not really not me. No.
Well, that's good to hear that. What else? I don't know. Can you tell us a bit what you have coming up for 2016 in terms of?
Well, this week there's an EP out, with a project of mine called Modini, which is me and another producer from Edinburgh called Alan Hostage, and it's out on Hypercolour, which is a UK label that's quite big at the moment, which is called The Answer, which is a project that I'm really proud of and pleased with. Solo-wise, I've got an EP coming out on the Hacker from France's label called Zone, which is called Extreme Pleasure, which is some real good techno stuff. I've got an EP coming out on Jerome Hill's Don't label. What else? A Swedish new wave kind of synth label thing. So I've got a few quite interesting projects. Yeah, a lot of stuff, and I'm always kind of cooking up new things. So.
And you also keeping touring as your live show.
I've got a really interesting new year. I'm going to play in Belgrade and Zagreb on the same night, and then I've got a few British dates back to Paris, and I'm doing a small American tour actually. So New York, LA, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we can thank you for being with us today, and that's all. We have a good night.